Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of As You Know with myself, Aaron Crocker Evernham. Today, I'm going to chat with Bernie Steubgen, the owner of the Indy Race Parts number 71, the owner of Indy Race Parts, and the crew chief of the race car, a track promoter, a man of many hats, but someone I feel like kind of stays behind the scenes. So I'm looking forward to getting to know Bernie a little bit better, and we'll sit down with him here in just a minute.
Perfection isn't easily achieved. It takes hard work, dedication, and perseverance. Through their commitment to excellence, Sage Fruit Company has been supplying customers with the best tree fruit in the Pacific Northwest for over 3 generations. They work hard on the farm, in the packing facilities, and with their retail partners to provide consistent, high-quality apples and pears all year long. Look for Sage Fruit at your local grocer.
So Bernie, tell us a little bit, we're going to go way back to the beginning. How did you get involved in racing? I think you had a dad and uncle that race, but talk about your early years in racing.
I grew up, I'm from Western Pennsylvania. I grew up probably 7 miles or so from Lernerville Speedway. And so I got interested in going to the sprint car race or dirt track racing there. But my dad did drag race actually before I was born. He did do some drag racing. My uncle did some motocrossing and whatnot. So kind of was in the family racing, whatnot. My uncle raced at Lernerville a little bit here and there. And so that's just, I guess it sparked the interest whenever I was a kid.
And you actually raced for a while too, right?
Yeah, I did race. I raced micro sprints in Pennsylvania, 270s at Linda's and Hill Valley and all the micro tracks. And then I quit racing and started a micro business. And then I moved to Indianapolis in '96 and raced a little bit here, but then just, I don't know, money wise or whatever, lost interest in it.
So going back a few steps, what got you interested in starting a business or a parts supply business and getting away from the driver's seat?
I don't know. I guess I probably looked at it more as the financial side of it is I could sell parts and still go to the races and make a living or try making a living at it and whatnot, and not, so to say, spend money trying to race and always being broke and trying to beg, borrow, and steal or whatever you have to do to get to the racetrack.
Yeah, we know racing's not a cheap sport. So you started a business first in Pennsylvania and then you moved it to Indy, or did you start a whole nother business when you moved to Indy?
Nope, I actually I sold that business when I moved here in '96. I sold the business at the beginning of '97, and then moved here, and I worked for Corey Phillip at Advanced Racing Suspensions, and I worked for him for many years, and then I started Indy Race Parts in 2002, just as a little side project. In the evenings I would sell race car parts or whatnot, and still worked for Corey for a whole, like, another year till '03, and then it became a little bit more busier and more busier. So I was like, well, I got to make a decision. And so I left Advanced and have been here full time since then.
Well, I know we have a lot to talk about today. I want to get into the race team and your role as a crew chief and team owner, but I do want to talk about the business for a little bit at first. What is it like to be in the racing parts supply business? I know there's a lot of ups and downs. It depends on how the racing industry is doing. And certainly the last few years going through the pandemic had to be a little bit crazy. And even now, I know there's, part supply issues and trying to get products.
It's obviously there's issues on getting certain things, and you just, unfortunately, you just train yourself. As I always want to sell, if somebody wants a part, I want to find the part, I want to sell them the part. That's how it works. And unfortunately, you just train yourself now, and you just tell them, hey, I don't have it. And I feel as though I try and get along with everybody. I'll send them to somebody else, to whoever, whatever other company there is. I'll tell them, hey, this guy might have it or that guy might have it, because I don't, and I can't tell you when I'm going to get it. But that being said, it's crazy. And in 2021, this past year. That was my best year I've ever had in sales. And you
Really?
think, well, yeah, and you think like, I'm a Hoosier tire dealer and I sell a lot of tires. But last year for the first 4 months, I sold a lot of tires. And then I don't want to say they shut me off, but obviously the distributor became struggling to get tires. So my tire sales went to a fourth of what I would normally do from April until the end of the year. And I lost out on that income, but it was still my best year that I've had in 20 years of being in business.
Wow, that says a lot for short track racing. I feel like all of us sprint car people and midget, whatever form of short track racing you want to talk about, there's a resurgence. It's coming back strong. Obviously, it's been good for your business, but even for your passion in the sport, how cool has that been for you to see sprint cars getting so much attention, the crowds that we were having at these big races nowadays?
Oh, it's great. I think, I've taken Buddy out to Central Pennsylvania for these first since the icebreaker and then those races, and it floors me how many people are actually there. And obviously, the weather has been okay, but it's still a little chilly. And this past weekend we're at Lincoln, and they're calling for rain, and we're trying to figure out where we're gonna. Brad, that works with me, we're trying to figure out where we're gonna go drink a beer on Saturday night because we know we're not going to race, but we have to go to the racetrack because they're still racing. And then it pours down rain. And so me and Brad are betting, hey, who's buying dinner? He's saying they're canceling. I'm saying they're racing. And then they race. And I'm like, there's a crap load of people here and it's miserable weather. It just is. It's really badass that there's that much support for it.
Yeah, we had Buddy on the show on Tuesday, and he talked about, especially the PA fans, how crazy and supportive they are. But going back to the business side again, you mentioned tires, and that's something even us for our small little Wing Nation show we do. People ask us like, hey, we heard that the tires are a real issue. What's going to happen in the next few months? Do you have any insight into, I mean, obviously being a Hoosier dealer, you probably know a little bit more about it. Is there going to be a serious issue later on the season, or do you think everything will work itself out?
Unfortunately, I do feel as though there is going to be an issue. But people probably aren't supposed to know this, but I try and tell people I share stuff. My wife tells me I share too much information.
We like that on podcasts, though. It's all good.
Yes. But I believe April 1st, there's another price increase from Hoosier that nobody really knows about. And I do believe I just saw that they just canceled Devil's Bowl 305 nationals for this coming weekend due to tire shortage. Wow. So I feel as though, and I tell guys, I'm like, hey, I'm just telling you, wherever you can buy tires or whatever, you need to buy tires because later on down the road, it's going to be tough to buy tires. So we tried to buy some, we bought some tires on Friday, but they would only allow us 2 right rears and 2 left rears at Williams Grove. Wow. So, I mean, I just think that, you would think that probably at the end of the day, the World of Outlaws will maybe not like get cut on tire issues, but local racing, I feel as though could, and my problem is like I told people that it really could turn into a big problem if I show up at a race and I have a brand new right rear on and I got another one in the trailer, but the next 3 guys next to me, they don't have an opportunity to buy a new tire because there aren't any available. And I'm like, you opened yourself up for a really big can of worms of, well, I can't compete because I don't have a new tire, but I can't race with him because he has a new tire. I don't really know what the resolve would be for that, but I think that could arise as an issue.
Gosh, that seems like a really sticky situation. If you think about that, I mean, I'm so far removed from sprint cars, like actually racing. Are there any other manufacturers that still make a decent tire? Do you think anything will open up if they have to?
Well, the problem is I think American Racer makes a tire that could be competitive. And when I went to Australia with Geo a couple 3 years ago, we actually ran American Racers and we actually won a race and were competitive the whole time we were there on American Racers. And I think American Racer makes a good tire, but their problem is that they're a spec tire for Australia. So therefore, their number one inventory concern is that everything goes in a container and goes to Australia. Gotcha. So, in Goodyear, I don't know that they would be interested. I always liked Goodyears. When we ran Goodyears, I thought they were a good tire. I think that it comes down to more of a material issue than anything.
Yeah, well, that's certainly going to be interesting to watch how the series will manage it and how the local tracks will manage it.
Yes.
So I guess moving to the race team side, when did you first start your sprint car team, the 71 car?
So I opened business in February of '02. And then I became real good friends with Damian Gardner from the West Coast, and he was a wing guy, but he was going non-wing racing, and so in '03, I threw out there. I said, hey, you want to try and put a car together, go run some USAC races in the Midwest. So we borrowed a motor from Tony Smiley, and then just got some help from here and there and whatever, and went and raced. I think the first race we ran was a May race at Eldora, and Damien raced the night before Paris, and I think he won. And then he flew back here, and we went, and that's when we started racing. And I ran non-wing. Probably, I don't know, off and on, up until '09, I believe. And then me and Tom Book, we McMahon was looking for a ride for the nationals, and he gave me a motor, and I built a car, and that was the first year. '09 was the first year that I ran a wing car, and obviously we made the nationals. The first time I went there, we made the nationals, and I was like, well, hell, this is easy. I'm just going to go wing racing.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. The first time I went to Knoxville, I made the A main too, and it wasn't pretty after that. So,
it has its moments.
Yeah, for sure. So I didn't really know how involved you were with the car and setup itself until I've talked to some of the drivers that you've worked with, just because, again, I'm kind of removed from it, living in North Carolina now. I make it to the nationals and only a few races each year. But a lot of the drivers that have driven for you speak really highly of you as a crew chief. And I don't think a lot of people know that. I think people see you as a business owner and the car owner, or maybe I'm just my perception. But that's really neat. So you are the crew chief on the car. I mean, Buddy Kofoid the other day considered you one of the most elite crew chiefs out there. Just talk about being a crew chief and that part of it, the passion for watching the car, fixing it, talking to the drivers, and making the changes.
It's just it obviously is to me, it's whenever you have a good night, it's just fulfilling, like, because obviously everybody goes to the racetrack in sprint car racing. Everybody goes to win. And then, like a Dennis Roth, for example, obviously he's not down there getting dirty, cranking weight into a car, whatever. He hires people to do that, which is great. I mean, that's all part of the scenario. On my behalf, for me, I don't have that opportunity to be able to afford to pay a crew chief. So I had to teach myself how to make it go around the racetrack. And now this year, Brad Alexander's helping me. And Brad came from Donnie Schatz's team from last year. And so it makes it nice because usually everything is on my shoulders. I got to make all the calls. Whenever Gio drove for me, it actually was just me and Gio. So I did all the driving to the racetrack, and from the racetrack, I made all the calls. But Gio's good that, he could give you good feedback or whatever. And so it just is like everybody thinks. I have had people, oh, he must cheat because he's fast every night, and he's goes with different drivers or whatnot, and I chuckle because that makes me feel good that people think that I would have to cheat to be able to be competitive every night. And I tell everybody, hey, you can check anything you want to. It's open book. You can go in the trailer and check everything. I don't care. Doesn't make any difference to me. I have nothing to hide. But yeah, I mean, it's just it makes me feel good that I can be competitive with different drivers, and working with Buddy this year so far has been really cool. He's just he's a really good kid, and he gives really good feedback, and you could tell. It's funny. Me and Brad were standing in the grandstands on Saturday night at Lincoln, up at the end of the front straightaway, and Buddy, we lost a spot to Brett Marks at the beginning, and then he battled around, and Danny Dietrich used us up a little bit on a slider, but then Buddy repaid him and used him up, and and so they battled back and forth, and then Brent got past Dietz, and we immediately passed Dietz, and we were probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 car lengths behind, and Buddy immediately drove up on his rear end, and I said to Brad, I said, man, I don't think that you could drive that car into the corner any harder than what Buddy is right now. And I was like, I said, that just shows you, like, he just does it. He's not giving up. Like, he is 110%. I'm going to try and win this thing or wear it out. And, you know, and I tell him all the time, I tell people all the time, not that it's something that I want to happen, but I tell people, hey, they build these things every day. As long as you don't get hurt and you're driving forward and this thing gets ripped in half, unfortunately, it just is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you too, like, we're going back to the crew chief thing, you drove, and that certainly seems, even in stock cars or whatever form of motorsports, it seems like to really help to have driven and to understand what the driver's feedback is. Like when a Buddy or Gio comes in and tells you what they're feeling, you understand it, you get it. I'm certainly thinking that helps as a crew chief, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. I actually, what Damian drove for me, and then the second year in 04, I had a young kid working for me, and he says, hey, they're renting Paragon. You should take your car down and drive it around. And I'm like, I don't need to do that. So I actually ended up taking my sprint car down there and I drove it myself. And then I decided I would race it. So I raced it a couple of times at Paragon non-wing, but I do truly believe I chuckle because I'm partners with Scott Ronk. He's like, we promote races together and stuff like that. And Scott's always on Parker Price Miller's ass about, well, you should have this or you should have that. And I always tell Scott, hey, how about we strap you into a car and you go out there and make some laps and show us how it's done. And then I'm going to blaze a car past you at 100 mile an hour and you tell us how it goes. And he's like, well, that's not what I get paid to do. I get paid to, you know, do my business and whatnot. And I supply this ride for Parker and whatnot. And I always tell everybody, man, sitting in the grandstands. Well, for example, whenever Damian was driving for me, we were racing at Hopstadt and we set quick time and he's out there and he's like 8 car lengths behind the whole field lining up. And I'm like, what the heck is he doing? Why is he doing that? So they drop a green flag and he drives to the front and we win the heat race by half a lap or so. And then that following year, I drove my sprint car and I called Damian that night. He was in Paris, and I'll never forget. I called him that night on my way home from the races, and I said, "Hey, when you drive for me, I'll never ever question anything that you're doing." As I said to him, I'm like, holy crap, that's a whole different sensation out there whenever you're following all those cars. And I said, basically, I'm telling you, people are idiots that are out there on the racetrack. I said, that's what I'm telling you.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yes, I do believe that having experience, you know, behind the wheel helps you understand what, like sometimes I did explain to Buddy on Saturday afternoon before we went to Lincoln. I said, sometimes your terminology is a little bit different than what I'm used to from other people. So I said, like, I have to decipher out exactly what you're feeling, because what you're explaining to me is this way, like, I'm thinking we're like in F1 or something, like how you're trying to explain something.
What is he talking about? Understeer and oversteer?
I don't even remember what it was, but he came in at Williams Grove and after the feature, and I asked him, I said, man, I said, we weren't very good. Did we lose the balance? And he's like, wow. And I actually don't know what word it was because it was way over my head. But I just was like, I just walked away because I was confused. And then we were sitting there waiting. And I said to Brad, I'm like, man, I don't know exactly what he was feeling because I don't know what that terminology is. And Brad's like, yeah, I'm not sure what that was either. So we have to work through that.
Power isn't born, it's built over time. For over 65 years, Hercules Tires has been providing the muscle to move more drivers, whatever the vehicle, whatever the terrain, and we back it with a powerful protection plan. So wherever the road or the trail takes you, we have the selection, value, and strength to get you there. Hercules Tires, ride on our strength.
That's funny. You talked about people accusing you of cheating and doing things, you know, maybe differently, that you're fast every time out. Are there things that you do that are innovative? I mean, when you're racing part-time, you might have I mean, I know you're busy full-time, but racing part-time, you might have the time to work on some parts and try some experimental things. You're not really running for points anywhere. Are there things that you try to do differently, or do you kind of just stick to the basics and go out there and you just have a great combination going?
Yeah, I just make it simple. It's like I tell Ricky Warner and Swank and all those guys. I'm like, you guys get paid to be crew chiefs. So you can tinker and like redefine things in the shop and measure and whatever. And I tell them, I'm like, I got to make mine as simple as can be, because if I try and trick something out and then I go to the racetrack and I struggle, well, then now I'm lost. So now I got to have a crutch to go here and a crutch to go there, whatever. I said, that's what Brad says to me when he came to help me. He's like, well, what do you do here with there? And I'm like, oh, I just, whatever, this, that, whatever. And he's like, well, that's pretty easy. And I'm like, I said, it has to, well, a couple of years ago when me and Gio won at Williams Grove, the next day, Warner says to me, he's like, hey, how, what'd you have here? Or how'd you have this? Or how was your shock? And I laughed and I told him, I said, well, I haven't checked the gas pressure in my shock in 2 years. So I'm not really sure exactly where they're at. And he didn't believe, he didn't believe me. And he's like, well, there's no way. And I'm like, I don't have time to check that gas pressure. That's a whole nother job. And I don't have time to do it. So I said, I haven't checked them in 2 years.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Your list of drivers, I mean, we've talked about Buddy and Gio, but you've had Paul McMahon in the car. You've had great success with Shane Stewart. There's a whole line of drivers, but almost every driver you've had in the car is very talented. How does that come about? Is that you handpicking them? Are they looking for opportunity? Like it just seems like the combination you put together with really any driver is a good one.
I actually laugh because everybody always it gets to the end of the year and whoever drove for me usually is going somewhere else or whatever. And everybody, oh, what are you doing next year? And I always laugh and I always tell them, well, I just wait until May or so, whenever a good driver gets fired and he needs to pick me up. And I'm like, hey, here I am. You want to come drive for me? We can go run some races. Joey Saldana, for example, he's driving a 17 car. He gets fired and he's quitting. I'm not racing sprint cars anymore. And he's being Debbie Downer. And I said, well, I said, if you want to, we'll just go to Wayne County and try it and see what happens. And so he shows up, puts a seat in, we go to Wayne County and we win the first night out. And he's like, he says to me, he goes, man, you can't believe how awesome this is. He goes, I didn't think I could win anymore. And I'm like, and I told somebody the other day, I said I could take Joey out of retirement and probably win an all-star show within the first 5 times we raced.
That's
I
awesome.
said, these guys don't forget how to race. Shane last year hadn't driven, since whenever, since Charlotte the year before, actually, we went to BAPS. And he shows up and almost wins at I-70, and he's like, man, he goes, I didn't think that it would be that easy. And I obviously, I'm not an arrogant person whatsoever, but I just chuckle and I say, it's all car, not driver.
Yeah. Well, it's a neat combination because obviously you have great equipment and you're a great crew chief, but you're getting these guys when they're not running for points. And some of them are running a part-time schedule or lost a ride. And it's almost like they've got something to prove. So it seems to really work for you.
Yes, it always makes it, whenever a guy gets fired, Jerry Russell always told me, you want to get that guy that just got fired, or his chick just kicked him to the curb, or his motorhome bill is due, or his payments due. He goes, those are the guys that you'll go win with.
There's something to be said for that. You talked about Dennis Roth before and not having the ability to just put a car on the road. Is that something you would like to do? Or do you like the operation that you have, that you can go when you can and you can work together? Or is there a dream of having a team that's on the road full time?
I'm actually teamed up with Leighton Crouch from Dallas, Texas. I'm building him. Currently, I'm building him a World of Outlaw team. We would actually be probably racing. That's what Buddy would actually be driving. But with some of the going back to the waiting for stuff, we're still waiting for some more Maxim frames to show up. I said, there's no sense in us jumping in and running a couple races and crashing a car, and then we don't have the stuff to keep on going. So I am starting a World of Outlaw team for Leighton. We're waiting on, we did get a new Kenworth. We have a new T&E trailer coming. Supposedly April 28th is when it's supposed to be done, but I would be surprised. So I am going that direction. That's Brad Alexander actually gets paid by Leighton. He just has been going with me because I told Leighton, I said, well, we might as well run the 71 car and just get everybody used to each other, so that whenever it'll be Leighton's number 11. So whenever he comes out, that way we can hit full stride and be competitive right out of the box.
So is that going to be something that you're part owner of, or is that?
Nah, I won't. No, Leighton wants me to be part owner of it and whatnot. And I told him, I said, no disrespect. I said, but I already have a sprint car team. I have a full, what I could go race whenever I mean, if I wanted to like do some push to shove, I could possibly try and run a lot of the outlaw races, but Indy race parts keeps me a little bit busy. So I don't, it always cuts into my schedule. But yeah, I mean, I would actually like to go run the World of Outlaws for 1 year. You know, just being a crew chief and not having to worry about paying the bills, just be the guy that just has to worry about winning races to keep a job.
Yeah. So do you think that's possibly in your future of a chance where you
I think we're gonna try and do it for next year.
Okay, cool. And you've got the business set that you'll be all right to head out on the road.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on all those issues and whatnot. I mean, there might be a you know, sometimes where I can't go because things didn't work out for any race parts and I have to be here. But that is what we're pushing for. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. So going back to drivers, you've worked with a lot of seasoned veterans that, you know, like you talked about, Paul McMahon, Joey Saldana, Shane Stewart, guys that were out of rides and just needed a part-time deal and had a lot of success with them. But you've also worked with the young guys. You mentioned Buddy, Gio, Spencer Baston, I think you've worked with, and Parker Price Miller. What is it like, or which do you prefer working with? You've got to have the young, hungry kids or the veterans that are still trying to prove their point, or is there really no difference?
You know, it's funny, you know, like, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but you like Shane and, you know, Shane, I think, is a good racer. He's definitely a good racer, you know, but he knew that he was getting ready to go be a promoter and, you know, whatever. And so, like, I don't want to say he wouldn't take the risks, but if he had a fifth place car, he was probably going to run fifth, you know, where, and even Gio was to that nature of like in his mindset, I'm not going to rip this thing in half, because obviously Gio at the end of the day he had to work on the car also. You know, but you could, like, I watch Buddy and I think to myself, wow, this kid just absolutely stands on the hammer. And he's got a 14th place car, but he might run 18th because he's just trying to get to 13th, which I do, you know, I like that because, you know, that's just that extra effort. Like Saturday night, when he got passed and he got shuffled around, and then he just kept running harder and harder. And he told me the last 5 laps or so, he ran the thing about wide open. I don't want to tell Charlie Garrett that, because he doesn't get very excited about that. But Charlie does. I took Buddy to Charlie's, I think for the icebreaker. I introduced him to him, and Charlie, he's old school, and he's like, he doesn't get too excited about young drivers. You know, he did not want me to run Gio, and then Gio, obviously we went well with Charlie's motors, so then Gio became a hero, and Charlie, he really likes Buddy a lot. He's a young polite kid and really stands on the gas. So I mean, at the end of the day, ultimately, probably in an honest answer, I guess whatever scenario I have working at the time, that's what I deal with. And, you know, like, and I mean, like I said, I could, you know, Shane comes and runs for me. I could go win races with Shane again, Joey, whoever.
Yeah.
It's funny. A lot of people don't know, but Kyle Larson actually drove for me once. And we went to the Lima for the Brad Doty Classic. And we were absolutely terrible. Like, we missed the show. And every now and then I say to Kyle, I was like, man, you got to give me another shot, because we were terrible that night. That was just a bad showing right there. He just chuckles about it.
You can make him feel bad and be like, look, all these other drivers did well in my car, all the races you won. Oh gosh, I was actually going to mention Kyle Larson, because years ago, we had him on the show and asked him, you know, who do you see coming along? And one of the people he said, or actually the only person he said, was Buddy Kofoid. And this was years ago. And I think Buddy was still racing outlaw carts, maybe even at the time. And he called him as like the next big thing. So it's cool to see the success you're having with him.
Yeah. And I think I think Buddy will be successful just because he has good presence of car. Like, he understands what's underneath him. You know, I'm excited to go race. I would really like to go race this weekend, but I think it's actually going to snow. You know, but I think next weekend he's running a pavement late model. Then he races midgets at Kokomo. Then he's running the truck race at Bristol, I think. And then he does midgets again after that at Port City. And I told Brad, I'm like, wow, we get 5 weeks off now. I said, I'm going to be very disappointed. I said, I can actually catch up on doing stuff. But I said, I'd actually rather because sometimes I can be just down and out and like, I'm selling everything. I'm just over it. And it's too much work. And then somebody like Buddy comes along and you have success and he's passing cars and you're just like, wow, I wonder if we could race 7 days a week.
Yeah, that's how the sport goes, right?
Yes.
So the $1 million question has always been, what do you think, or what attributes do you think make a good race car driver? Like, obviously we're talking about Buddy and you just said how much he excites you being in your car. What are those attributes that are they, the ability to slow down time and to be precise, or is it the aggressiveness? I mean, what are your thoughts on what makes a really great race car driver, and are those things that you can see when you're thinking about who you're going to put in your car?
I don't know, there's many different ways you can look at it, like if like a Joey or a Shane or whoever, you're more than likely, that they're going to be fast, but they're not going to rip the front end out of your car because they're older and they don't want to crash and they don't want to feel it, for 3 weeks. Then you have a Buddy or a Geo, whoever, they're just on the hammer, hey, I'm going to the front, and they might rip it in half, but usually when they rip it in half, they pop out of it and walk back to the trailer and go, oh man, sorry I screwed your stuff up, but hey, we'll just go get them again tomorrow. So it just goes back to that, I don't know, it's just something you have to feel with the guy. I mean, no disrespect to Spencer drove for me last year and like we just didn't seem to, like, he did drive for me the year before and we were successful, and then last year to begin, we just, I don't know, something wasn't clicking and we just weren't like, it wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't have excitement to go to the racetrack, and I told him, I'm like, man, if you can go drive the McGee car or whatever, just go do that. And so that's what he did. It's just sometimes some of my issue is that I become really busy at the shop. And I still think I want to try and go race. And I know I don't have time to do it. So then I really just get down and out and I'm mad at myself because I'm half-assing at the shop and half-assing going racing and it just doesn't work out. With Buddy, I don't know, I just get excited. And I told my wife, she works for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I told her the other day, I think after Lincoln, I talked to her, I said, hey, you should just quit your job and work at Indy Race Parts full time, and then I'll just go race full time. That doesn't pay the bills very well, but that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. How'd that go over?
She said, yeah, I'll do it, but how do we pay our bills? And I'm like, we could get by for at least a year before they come and repo all of our stuff.
All right, so you've got the race team in the shop, but you also do some promoting. I've follow you on social media, saw your stuff about what you're doing at Terre, Haute. So as if you weren't busy enough, now you're doing some promotion too.
Well, and we did that, and Scott and myself, more Scott than me. We bought a brand new Longhorn dirt late model with a Cornet motor too. Just
really, because you weren't
just
busy enough.
Yes. Well, and everybody's like, why would you do that? And I'm like, well, dirt late model suspension intrigues me. So that's the main reason why I am intrigued with doing that. But yeah, it's the Terre Haute thing. I think it should be a lot of fun. I unfortunately have not been there because I've been going to Pennsylvania to race, and Scott's been going down there on the weekends and working. But it should be a lot of fun. I mean, they're doing a lot of work. My wife has been down there many times. And so I think that it should be a lot of fun to try and bring it back. And we're trying to, so we're going to put like a little bar area in the infield, I think, and then, or we are. And then at the other end towards, I think, turn 3, I decided I was going to put like a little playground in to try and bring back the lure of the infield. You go to Williams Grove or Lincoln or Port, and the infield is just where it's at. Like, there might be 10 people in the grandstands, but there's 5,000 people in the infield. And I'm just like, we need to bring back the infield, just to keep people interested. They can all hang out, drag their coolers in there, and they can go down there and watch their kids play on the playground, or they can go sit in the bar area and have a drink or whatever. We're just trying to go that direction, just to make everything more like, make it a hangout, so to say.
Yeah, making an experience, not just an event.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
Bernie, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but final question. When you look down the road, say 5 years, what would your world look like? Would it be more World of Outlaws? Would it be more promotion? Would it be racing some late models? What would you like to see long-term future?
My wife gets mad at me because she's always mad because I don't plan anything. And I always tell her, I said, when you plan something, you're just disappointing yourself or someone because plans always change. So I really, honestly, I probably couldn't give you an answer for that because I could tell you, oh, I want to go run the World of Outlaws and try and win a championship. But probably in another month or so, I could take that dirt late model out and maybe run in the top 3 or something and go, oh, screw sprint cars. I'm going late model racing. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Uh, I probably overdo and get myself into way too many things. I have at the end of the day, I have people that call me almost every single day wanting to rent a sprint car ride. And I feel bad whenever I can't do it just because I got too many things going on. And so there are a couple people that I have made a couple deals with where, yeah, I'll rent you a ride. Let me work out when I can do it and whatnot. And so I just, my wife, her name's Betsy, and she gets mad at me. We were on our way to get something to eat last night, and she's like, you just have too many things going on. You got to cut back. You're going to kill yourself overworking yourself. And I said, but I have to stay busy because I said, if I sit at home and watch TV, all I'm thinking about is what could I be doing? I could be this,
Yeah.
I could be that, and whatever. And I said, I just have to stay busy.
Yeah. So do you have a driver for the late model?
Probably since Scott is more involved in it, Parker will initially get to drive it,
Very cool.
and I told Parker, I said, until you rip the quarter panels off of it and I have to fix them, then we're finding somebody else.
Yeah, those fenders you got to watch out for.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Bernie, we thank you so much for joining the podcast today. We wish
Yep.
you all the luck in the world. And it was really neat to get to know you. Like I said, I'm not at the track all that much, but I also feel like you're one of those guys you hear a lot about, but I've never had the chance to really chat with you. So
Sure.
I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you for having me on. And whenever you're at a race, just come by and say hi.
Will do, for sure. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thank you.